absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Welcome to this bonus episode of the Physical Performance Show, episode 285, brought to you by Precision Hydration's brand new fuel range and Pogo Physio's online telehealth consultations. I'm Brad Beer, sports physiotherapist and exercise scientist by trade and training, and founder of Pogo Physio. Each week, we bring you the latest and greatest information and inspiration designed to help you perform at your physical best. Of course, we do this across a range of our different episodes: interest editions, expert editions, featured performers, coaches' corners, interest editions, and catch-up episodes. And of course, every now and then, these bonus episodes. Now, hot off the back of the Tokyo Olympic Games, we've been bringing you some bonus material, hearing from athletes who have featured on the Physical Performance Show in the past around their Olympic campaigns. And today's bonus episode is a collective look at the Australian marathon team. The marathon was run in hot and arduous conditions in Sapporo, and we caught up with Australian team members whilst in hotel quarantine to capture their reflections on their performances. As per the theme of this show, the highs, lows and learnings, there were plenty of those, and we kick off this Tokyo marathon reflection with Sinead Diver, who ran the marathon of her life, finishing in 10th place, running through the field to cross the line in 2:31:14. Here is Sinead Diver reflecting on her Tokyo 2020/21 Olympic marathon debut. Sinead Diver, welcome back to the Physical Performance Show. We last spoke in July of 2017 on episode 68, so a lot has happened since then.
Hey Brad, how's it going? Yeah. So what year was it?
2017.
Oh, wow. So yeah, a lot has happened since then. So that was just, I think, before I went to London World Champs.
You'd been running for the grand total of 5 years or thereabouts at that point. Now you've been running for the grand total of circa...
11 years, pretty much.
And there must be something about those double digits, Sinead, because your recent Tokyo Olympic Games Olympic debut was nothing short of spectacular, running through the field to secure a top 10 finish in just 3:54 behind Kenya's winner, Jepchirchir, sorry on the pronunciation, in 2:31:14. I mean, what an incredible debut.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was very happy with it because I was very consistent, I think, throughout the race. So I think I got my pacing down perfectly with the conditions, given how hot and humid it was. I got a bit worried the night before that, it could be a little bit dangerous. So I was determined to go out conservatively and not struggle too much in the latter half of the race. Like, I still got really, really tough and everything, but I was able to maintain my pace. So I was very happy with that.
I mean, I think from memory, you passed maybe two competitors in that final sort of coming around the bend in the straight.
Yeah, I can't really remember a whole lot before I turned into the corner. I remember seeing the 400 meter to go mark, and that was just when we turned that corner at the end. And I saw the finish line and I saw the girl in front of me. So I just went for it. I actually didn't really realize the Canadian girl wasn't that far ahead either. So I kind of wish I had seen her. But yeah, look, I was delighted with top 10.
And you knew where you were at that point?
No, I had no idea, because it's really difficult to keep track of how many people are in the pack, because there was a big pack initially and then a lot of people dropping off and a lot of people getting too far ahead to kind of see in that. So I had no idea what position I was in. And I knew that I was passing a lot in that last 10K though. So I figured I was going pretty well, but I thought maybe top 20. And then I crossed the line. I was just really happy to finish and be, feel strong in that. And then I bumped into I congratulated Molly Seidel. I couldn't believe it when I saw her with the American flag and she came third. So I gave her a hug, and then I went through the mix zone and I bumped into the media, the Australian media guy, Liam, and I was like, do you know what place I came? And he was like, top 10. I was like, are you sure? So I just found out just before I did the Channel 7 interview. So that was good.
Which was a beautiful interview. You showed some real obvious emotion in that moment, talking about the sacrifices of your family, your husband, 2 sons. It was a great moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are pretty emotional anyway at the end of a marathon. And then as soon as the boys were mentioned, I was like, oh God. And I've been away from them for, it's actually 2 months now. So I cannot wait to see them. And obviously I've been on FaceTime and chatting to them every day, but just to, give them a hug. And yeah, I just can't wait to see them and Colin as well. It's been so long.
And I think that's part of the success that the world sees, a top 10 finish, Olympic debut. It's that pre-camp, the staging camp in Cairns for the heat acclimation work. It's not like you get on a direct flight.
Prior to that, I actually went to Canberra because Victoria was potentially going to go back into lockdown. It was around that time we went into the lockdown, just around Launceston. So I missed that race because I couldn't go to Tassie. And then we had Gold Coast half coming up, and I thought it was really important to get the lead-in races done. So we went to, myself and Collis and Brett, Jack and Liam went to Canberra so that we could go to the Gold Coast. That ended up being not a waste of time, but the Gold Coast half got cancelled. So I could have stayed in Melbourne all the time. But anyway, it's easy in hindsight to say all of this. And then, went to Cairns, and it's all added up to 2 months, I think, in a couple of days since I've been home.
And at the moment, you're circa halfway through your quarantine in Stamford Plaza there in Brisbane.
Day 5, I think. Yeah.
Day 5. And it's a cruel irony to put marathon runners in a room, I have to say. It's
okay for a few days, I think. I almost welcomed the rest and kind of, I was really running on very little sleep for a few days before we got here. But now I'm ready to leave. I want to go home. But it's not too bad. The hotel is really nice, and I'm on Zoom calls all the time, and I'm actually back to work. So I'll work from 11 till 5 every day. So it's, time passes pretty quickly. I can't believe I'm here actually nearly a week. So
yeah. No, that's great that it's passing quickly. And just back on the pacing strategy, Sinead, what was the pacing strategy that yourself and Collis, your coach / Nick Bedeau, the Melbourne Track Club, what had you put in place?
Nick and Collis really just said to me, we couldn't really come up with a pace because it was too hard to judge with the conditions. So they just said, you got to be really comfortable for 90 minutes and the race only starts then. So I ran to feel. It didn't bother me at all, what pace we were doing. And I ran with just at the pace the pack was going for the first 5K really. And that was quite slow, which I don't know, which is good. But in your mind, you're kind of thinking, gosh, this is really slow. Should it feel easier than it actually feels? And, you can have a little bit of it's nearly harder mentally at the start than, it only gets hard physically around 30K. So you have so much time to think about pace and strategy. In that first 30K, it's a little bit daunting. But yeah, I ran to feel. I wasn't looking at my splits really. There was actually one 5K that I was a bit quicker, but it was downhill, and I checked my watch a few times and pulled back a bit around then just to make sure I wasn't going too hard.
Wow. So ran to feel for the bulk of that race.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's kind of what you have to do in a marathon where the conditions are bad, because I kind of knew what I could do based off training if it was in a nice cool marathon with not much wind, but that goes out the window with heat and humidity.
Yeah. And I mean,
be careful.
The race got brought forwards 1 hour on the eve of the marathon. In hindsight, not a bad move.
Yeah, no, I was definitely happy about that. They didn't expect it to be that hot in Sapporo. It just happened to be that week there was a heat wave because the following week temperatures were right down again. So it was really unlucky in a way. And I think it was actually better in Tokyo that day. So we could have just stayed in Tokyo. It was a pity because being in Sapporo was, it was okay, but we missed out a bit on being at the Olympic Village. But we actually got to go there on the Sunday night, so that was really good. and we got a bit of a feel for the Olympics, and we had a lot of fun that night. It was good to get there.
I recall I think, with Zane Robertson, the Kiwi marathoner in Ethiopia at the time. I think around the time it was announced that it would be moving to Sapporo, and he was evidently disappointed because I guess you want to be amongst it. And I saw Zane get back to the village and enjoy it as well. So that's nice that you got to do that. I mean, your Olympic debut, having missed, and the context obviously is you developed a knee injury ahead of Rio 2016. So you were really fired up for this one, and it must feel gratifying to have made it count.
Yeah, for sure. And like, it's been a long time coming. And then with the delay for a year as well, that was really frustrating. And I like everyone, I put in a lot of work for this marathon, and with the marathon, anything can go wrong. There's so many little things that can really impact the outcome. So I'm delighted that it all worked out, and it's been great.
If you could use one word to sum up your Olympic experience, what would it be, Sinead?
Oh God, amazing! I think it was experience of a lifetime. I cherish this forever. It's been a wonderful experience.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think for all running mums out there, you're such an icon, certainly in Australia and likely abroad as well. Any bit of advice you'd share with the mum out there, or any athlete really, that might be doubting their dreams?
Oh gosh, I think mums and dads, parents in particular, just feel a lot of guilt if they take time for themselves in some kind of pursuit. So, I think it's important to do something for yourself, even when you have kids, and to not feel that guilt. Yeah, I think that would be my only piece of advice, not to feel, because parents are racked with guilt all the time. I think if they're not, focus on their kids 100%, I think. Just do a little something for yourself and don't feel guilty about it would be my piece of advice.
It's very, very practical, Sinead, and one that I think most parents will hear, but then working it through that can be a little challenging, but it's nice to hear. And Sinead, big several years coming up ahead. You've got the World Championships, hopefully, Commonwealth Games, hopefully, Paris just around the corner. So I guess we can all look forwards to this story continuing.
Yeah, it's exciting to have such a big year next year. We've been starved of competition now for so long. It's great to have Com Games and the World Champs just around the corner, and then the Olympics will be just around the corner from that. It won't be long till the Olympic qualifying period opens up again, and I can't wait to go again.
Look out. Well, that's brilliant. Sinead, you're a national treasure. I suspect Ireland might be trying to claim you as their own as well, but I think Australia's got a firmer hold on you, right? Obviously I represent Australia now. I've had great support from Ireland as well, which is really, really nice. It's really cute. You're an international figure, such an inspiring one. Congratulations on what a remarkable performance. Top 10 Olympic marathon on debut, just sensational.
Thanks, Brad.
Now, we keep the women's marathon reflections coming, and next across the line was Ellie Parshley, crossing the line in 2:33.39 for an impressive 23rd place on Olympic debut, just like Sinead. And here is Ellie reflecting on her Olympic highs, lows and learnings. Ellie Parshley, welcome back to the Physical Performance Show. Last time we spoke, it was October 2019, episode 183, just off the back of your World Championships debut in Doha. And haven't you achieved a lot since then? And hasn't the world gone upside down since then?
Yeah, I didn't actually realise it was that long ago. There's certainly been some changes since then. But yeah, I think we would have been gearing up for the Olympics in 2020 at that stage. And then, a few months later, it all went mad. So it's crazy.
And here you are post-Tokyo 2020/21 in hotel quarantine there in Brisbane with your fellow Australian marathon teammates. Just firstly, how are you managing quarantine?
I find quarantine pretty tough, to be honest. This is the second time I've done it. For most athletes and probably most people in general, not being outside is fairly challenging. So because we're so used to being out training every day, I struggle with the lack of fresh air and being stuck in a room. But I've got a bike in here, so that's sort of keeping me sane. And the first few days post-marathon are okay because I think your body's still recovering and you're not really that antsy to get out and exercise. But yeah, I think as the 2 weeks goes on, it's going to get more challenging. But yeah, I know I got through it last time, so I know I'll be okay this time.
And surely running a marathon in the heat of Sapporo, Tokyo 2021 could arguably be tougher, or maybe not.
I don't know. I think I'd probably take the hot marathon in Sapporo over this, to be honest. It's tough, but it's over in 2.5 hours. So, yeah.
I thought that might be the answer, the reply. Well, Ellie, congratulations on your Olympic debut, and what a fine one it was, finishing 23rd in a stacked marathon field in 2:33.39. Your PB stands at 2:26. Correct me if I'm wrong. So a very impressive result in trying conditions. So congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Yeah, I was really happy with that. I think being my first Olympics, my big goals, especially through the training block, were get to the start line healthy, and then once we got there, it was all about getting through that race. In those sort of conditions, anything can happen, as people who watched will have seen. So yeah, just finishing the race is fairly challenging, and I wanted to make sure that I did everything I could to get through it. So yeah, I was very happy and relieved.
You did so well, and your pacing strategy, yourself and Coach Julian Spence. What was the strategy that you had in place for that? It seemed to work very well.
Yeah, so we sort of discussed the impact that the heat and humidity was going to have, and I'd done a huge amount of heat preparation, so I think that made a big difference. But in the last workout that I did leading into the race, I tried to get a feel for exactly what sort of pace might feel sustainable, and we worked out that it was probably about 10 to 15 seconds a K slower than what I'd been running in training. So my plan was essentially to go out roughly on that pace and just make decisions within the race. So if at any stage I felt like I was going too hard too early, just to pull it back and keep reminding myself to relax and keep it very comfortable early on. So that was what we did. And I think that worked really well because I actually felt quite good for the majority of the race. It wasn't until the end where the heat really started to get to me. But yeah.
Wow. What part of the race did the heat start to get to you, Ellie?
To be honest, I felt pretty good for the first 20 to 30 Ks. So every single water stop, every kilometre or so, I was pouring cold water on my head, getting ice, taking as many drinks as I could. So I didn't we were aware that it was warm out there, but it probably wasn't until after 30K where it really, I guess the fatigue was setting into and the heat started to feel quite oppressive. And I think there were some long stretches in the sun on pretty wide open roads. And yeah, in those last 12Ks, you could really feel it, and you could just see what was happening to the people around us. Like it was pretty challenging conditions.
That last, I believe it was a 10K loop to finish from 32 to 42 Ks. That must have been as per every finish of a marathon, psychologically quite tough at that point. As you say, you were starting to feel the effect of the heat.
Yeah, it was. The loops, I actually didn't mind them in this scenario. I almost felt like when I got to the last loop, I was comfortable that I only had one lap to go, and I knew that I'd be able to get through it. And you almost learn the course by that stage. So there were some sections of shade and some sections that were a little cooler compared to others. So you could kind of break the loop down. And I knew that we had a long, almost uphill sort of stretch into the sun, and that then we were going to go through the university and it was going to be shady and a few corners to break up the pounding on your legs. And yeah, I found that it helped to look forward to those patches within the loop to kind of get you, almost break it down and get you to that next point before you could then think about the next few Ks. So I didn't mind that.
I guess in some ways, perhaps better than an out and back, which can be quite mentally taxing.
Oh yeah, an out and back. And especially if we had, straight roads with full sunshine the whole time, I think that would have been brutal.
Sinead shared that she was not aware of her actual placing in the race, even coming into the sort of the home straight there. Were you aware of where you were sitting numbers-wise, or was it just a matter of running your race and the rest would take care of itself?
Yeah, for most of the race, I had no idea. I knew that I was a fair way back early on. And I was actually hoping that somebody would tell me roughly what I was coming. And coming into the last lap, I ran past Lee Troop. So Troopy was working on the American girls' drink table, and he was going off, which was actually really cool because it was quite quiet out on course. It was really nice to have someone sort of screaming at you. But he told me that I'd moved into the top 30 and that they were all coming back to me, and that was like exactly what I needed to hear. I was sort of hoping that was roughly where I was placed, and so I had an idea after that I was coming sort of 20 something, and then I had a feeling to coming into the home straight I could see a pack in front of me, and I thought to myself, oh, that's probably top 20 right there, and I'm probably not going to catch them. But yeah, I was happy. Close to top 20.
That's so awesome and great. That's a great little anecdote, Lee Troop. I did see him on the fuel station there, obviously with the American team. Of course, his allegiance, we know, is deep with Australia, and I did wonder if he'd be giving you guys some encouragement. So that's brilliant. What a legend. What was your fueling strategy, Ellie, in terms of carbohydrate ingestion? What did that look like in those conditions?
Yeah, so we had 11 personal drink stations. And in training, I tried a few different things. So initially my plan was I was going to try and take carbs in a drink mix, so with fluid. And I found I was struggling a little bit with just forcing all the fluid down during training. So I went back to my previous strategy, which is just Morton gels. And I had a Morton gel attached to a bottle every 4K or whatever it was. And I think in the end I had about 6 gels out on course, and I took them all, and then I just drank whatever I could drink with that. And I had Coke for my last 2 aid stations, flat Coke, just to mix it up from the gels late in the race. Yeah. And my fueling strategy was really well. I went really well. I got every gel down. I drank huge amounts of water and electrolyte, and possibly too much. I think I actually drank more than I needed to because I wasn't dehydrated at all at the end. So I was surprised by that, because sometimes I struggle a bit getting the fluid in, but I think just because it was so hot and we had so much water out on course as well because of the heat. So I got all that in.
Well, you got there and you finished in strength, or with strength, which is on reflection got to be a big positive. And you had time to prepare in some degrees to the rigors of Sapporo's heat up in the Cairns staging camp here in Australia. That looked like a hot time, but looked like there was some good work being done up there as well.
Yeah, the staging camp was great, actually. We were there for about 3 weeks before we flew out, and I'd been at the Sunshine Coast prior to that as well, just because I'm from Victoria and it was going to be far too cold to train for a hot marathon down there. So, yeah, we used the sauna in Cairns, and the temperature in Cairns was sort of high 20s, low 30s, but it wasn't quite the same humidity as Sapporo. So it was probably good. We could get a lot of the quality sessions in there without totally cooking ourselves. I think had we been training in that Sapporo, Tokyo heat for an extended period of time, it might have actually been too much. So, yeah, we had everything we need there. Athletics Australia set up a really good camp, and we had, physio, massage, food, every meal. And, yeah, it was actually quite relaxing and just allowed you to focus on what you had to do in those last few weeks.
Yeah, brilliant. And on the food side again, Ellie, just to loop back, were you calculated with the amount of carbs you were taking on an hour?
Yeah, so we have Jess Rothwell is the dietitian who she works with Athletics Australia and the VIS. So I've been working with her for quite a while anyway, just for training, fueling. So, yeah, she'd done us all a carbo loading plan and then a race plan, and she helped with all the hyperhydration and, yeah, I guess race hydration stuff as well. So I had a plan. I think in the end I took on like maybe 60-something grams of carbs an hour during the race. And then, yeah, the day before we do the carbo load where I think we tried to get about 12 grams per kilo each. Is that right? Per day? That sounds about right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So that was really good. And to be honest, the carb load isn't it's not that different to what we eat on a daily basis anyway, when our training load's high. So I didn't find it too challenging at all.
Yeah. And Ellie, what were the first words between yourself and Coach Julian Spence?
Yeah, so I rang Jules after the race when I was sitting in the ice bath, and yeah, he was pretty stoked, I think, because I think he was nervous about just with the heat, and yeah, we had a race plan in place, but you sort of never know what somebody's going to do on the day. But he said to me the day before, like, I trust you, you know what to do, just go out there and execute your plan and make decisions, whatever you think is the right one at the time. So yeah, I think I stuck to what we spoke about, and he was really happy with the way that I progressed through the field in the second half. So
mission accomplished. And you're a proud New Balance athlete ambassador, and it's really great to see brands sticking up now with, you know, obviously the Nike innovations. It's fantastic that the playing field has really leveled out there, and there's been some brilliant performances in New Balance shoes across the Olympic Games.
Yeah, it was really cool to see all the RC2s out there. So I think there were some triathletes that ran really well in the New Balance shoes, and it, like you said, it's so good out there in marathons too. There's such a mix of shoes on people's feet, and I'm really happy with the marathon shoe that New Balance have got. And that was actually the first time I'd been able to run a marathon in them, I think. Yeah, so that was a great experience. And now I just want to go and run a flat, fast, cold one so that I can really test them out.
Brilliant. A flat, fast, cold one. So looking ahead, where might we find you next? Obviously, the event calendar's been challenging, but what's the plan?
Yeah, I haven't got any races locked in yet. But when I finished that race, I was almost pretty keen to go again straight away. But I think the quarantine thing kind of is a challenge there. So I'll probably look at doing something early next year. And it depends which countries we're allowed into. So Japan have got some great flat, fast, cold marathons in the first 3 months of the year. So that would probably be something I'd love to do. But then there's also some of the American ones like Boston and London Marathon in April. So yeah, I'll work out a bit of a plan once I get out of here and start working towards them.
Yep. Step one, exit quarantine. I mean, big years coming. Yeah. There's Com Games, World Champs. So it's a big opportunity for more representation, Ellie. And I think we'd all get the sense that you're just getting started.
Oh, hopefully, yeah. You never know what's going to happen. But yeah, I think I've got a lot of confidence from this last couple of years. And yeah, hopefully I can keep going and keep racing marathons and keep progressing from here.
Yeah, brilliant. Ellie Parshley, thank you for so generously sharing some of your quarantine time on this Tokyo Australian team marathon recap.
Oh, no worries, Brad. I've got plenty of time.
Stay well, and we look forward to catching up again soon.
Okay, thank you.
And don't forget to check out Ellie Parshley and Coach Julian Spence's online running coaching platform, runstrongonlinecoaching.com.au. Now, next across the line for the Australian marathon women was repeat guest of the show, Lisa Waitman, who crossed the line just behind Ellie Parshley for a remarkable 26th place for her 4th Olympic Games outing, having started with Beijing 2008 in 33rd position, 2012 London 16th, and 2016 Rio 31st. Now, we were unable to catch up with Lisa Waitman, but huge kudos for another incredible effort from a real stateswoman, if you like, of Australian distance running. You're listening to this Tokyo recap featuring the Australian Marathon team members. Support for today's show comes from Precision Hydration. I spoke recently on episode 234 with Andy Blow, co-founder of Precision Hydration, for an expert edition around all things hydration science. It was a very popular expert edition with lots of feedback coming through around the fact that there is not one size fits all when it comes to our hydration needs. Now the team at Precision Hydration are doing the same thing for fueling as what they've done for hydration by helping athletes understand how much carbohydrate they need to perform at their best. You can take the quick carb calculator to get a fueling recommendation, and then from there you can book in for a free one-to-one video consultation with the Precision Hydration team to refine not only your hydration but also now your fueling strategy for your next race. From there, once you know your numbers, you can use the new Precision Fuel 30 gels and Precision Fuel 30 drink mixes to hit them. Each product contains 30 grams of carbohydrate per serving to make it easier for you to keep track of your intake and ensure you're getting enough fuel in to perform at your best during training and racing. As a listener of the show, you can get 15% off your first order of Precision Hydration electrolytes and the new Precision Fuel range by using the code TPPS at the checkout at precisionhydration.com. Support for today's show also comes from our upcoming live stream event featuring Reyna McGregor, UK-based sports dietitian and author, Fueling the Endurance Athlete. Tickets are selling fast and are available for $49 Australian over at pogophysio.com.au/Reyna McGregor live stream, or jump over to the bio link on Instagram for the Physica Performance Show. It's a 3-hour live stream, 3 to 6 p.m, to be held on the 3rd of September, where Reyna will be covering 4 key modules on the day with full PDF copies of the notes available to all registrants. And if you cannot make the time, don't despair. We will be making a post-event recording available to all registrants. And of course, support for today's show comes from Pogo Physio's online telehealth consultations. If you are an endurance athlete, runner, triathlete, struggling with bone stress injuries, tendon-related problems, or joint concerns, then our 45-minute online telehealth consultations can be the ideal platform to help get you back to your physical best. Here's a little success story from Sarah, recreationally competitive triathlete based in Tasmania, Australia, who was able to get back to her physical best via telehealth for a persistent foot bone stress injury.
Hey, I'm Sarah. I'm a competitive age group triathlete from Australia, and telehealth 100% works. I did telehealth with Brad for chronic sesamoiditis, and I didn't need any hands-on treatment. I had exercise prescription and load management with my training. And this, along with Brad's expertise and genuine care, got me across my pogo finish line.
And now let's jump back with this week's bonus episode, a Tokyo 2020 marathon recap featuring the Australian team members. And kicking off, we have repeat guest of the show, Liam Adams, who ran strongly and smartly through the field to finish in an impressive 24th place in 2:15.51 in what were extremely challenging conditions. Here's my conversation with Liam Adams. Liam Adams, welcome back to the Physica Performance Show. Last time we caught up, it was October 2017, episode 81, just after the Rio Olympic Games. So now you're sitting in hotel quarantine after the Tokyo 2020/21 Olympic Games. So welcome back.
Cheers, mate. Yeah, thanks. Who would have thought that we'd be in this type of situation, thinking back from back then. So, yeah.
Exactly. The world has changed. Liam, maybe just to contextualise your great success there in Tokyo, you ran through the field for a very controlled race, finishing in 24th position, which is highly credible in a very steep field, 2:15.51 in incredibly arduous testing conditions. But before we pull apart the race, your performance, your qualifying for Tokyo itself was quite the challenge. Can you just put listeners in perspective with what you had to go through to even get yourself to Tokyo?
Yeah, it was pretty chaotic, I guess. So I tried to qualify at Gold Coast Marathon, and I originally had the plans that, you might need points to try and get selection. So the aim was to try and maximise the amount of points I could get at Gold Coast. And the boys, Jack and Brett, threw out some good quality times at London that year. So the plans had changed from points to time. So, I tried to get that qualifying standard at Gold Coast. Conditions were pretty tough. It was a really windy day, and I ran pretty much solo from about maybe 10K onwards. So, I fell short by 6 seconds there, and went off to Berlin to try and get that 6 seconds qualifying standard. So prepped up for Berlin, got myself in really awesome shape, and then got a chest infection that lingered for probably about a month and a half. So I knew that I wasn't going to run there, but because I'd spent $5 or so grand on that trip, so I was just thought, well, I might as well give it a crack and see how I'd go. And on the day, was rolling around okay to start with, but I got to about 17K and the breathing was gone and just the fitness wasn't quite as good as I wanted. So I had to pull the pin there at that race, and I think I got to about 33Ks in that race. So that was a fail.
And what month in the year was that? Sorry, there, Liam, just to put people in perspective, that was Berlin
2019. So yeah, Berlin 2019, and that's in late September.
Yep.
So yeah, after that, it was about what marathon I should try and qualify with. And while this was all going on, there was talks of one of the athletes, which was ahead of me, which had tested positive at the Gold Coast Marathon, and which meant that I would drop down one position, which top 5 at Gold Coast Marathon would be regarded as an automatic qualifying standard. But that process was going to take forever, so I still had to go out and try and get a qualifying standard. We ended up deciding that Lake Biwa was going to be a pretty good place to try and chase that time. And I guess everyone would probably remember what was happening in that summer that year. There was lots of bushfires and whatever else. So training was pretty bad. There was lots of smoke. I was visiting my girlfriend's family in Sydney, and conditions there weren't great. We went back down to Melbourne. Smoke there wasn't great, and couldn't get up to Falls Creek to train and do altitude training. So I was looking at doing about a month stint doing altitude training, and that kept getting pushed back. So as that was happening, I was thinking, I need to try and find another marathon, because I'm not going to have a decent training block leading into Lake Biwa Marathon. And I was looking at London Marathon and couldn't get into that. Yeah, tried a couple of weeks and couldn't get into that. So I was just like, well, I have to go with this prep to Lake Biwa. Got up to Falls Creek probably about mid-January. There's still a little bit of smoke lingering around. I think the first half week it was pretty bad. Some of the runners ended up deciding that they were going back to Melbourne because the smoke was that bad. But I kept up there. It was kind of funny. A few of those runners left, and then the day after that, it was clear, and we didn't have any smoke from then on in. So, yeah, the conditions got a bit better up at Falls Creek, and did a month there and got into really good shape. Did Lake Biwa, which is March that year, and we're all kind of stressing because this is when COVID was hitting and borders were shutting and whatever else, and races were all getting cancelled. And just speaking to the other Aussies leading into that race, we were all kind of fearing that it'd get cancelled, and we were kind of reassured that it wouldn't, but there was kind of strict rules in place so that the race would go ahead. Luckily, we got over there, got to do the race. Conditions were terrible once again. It was windy, wet, pretty cold. We had a bit of a starter's gun malfunction at the start of the race, so they held us there for about 10 minutes in the wet and cold, and my back was stiffening up and whatever else. And then they've gone, all right, we're delaying the start. So everyone ran underneath the stands, tried to get warm again, and I went next to a fire, tried to keep a bit warm. It was a heater, not quite a fire, but saw that there was a couple of ponchos on the ground, and thought, that could be good to kind of keep warm for the first little part of the race. So I chucked a poncho on and went back out to the start line and carried that through for a couple of K just to try and keep warm and that. And it kind of was, because the buttons were kind of ripped, it was kind of acting a bit like a parachute. So I was just like, I've had enough of this. So I kind of threw it off maybe 3 or 4K in, and had a good run there from about 15K, 17K onwards. I'd kind of lost the pack that I was running with. The lead guys had decided to throw in a hard surge, and I found myself around with this pack which had kind of fallen off, and I thought, all right, they're trying to run a bit of a smart race. But after about 1 or 2 Ks, I realized that they'd kind of blown up. So I was just like, well, I have to go solo from here because I want to get that qualifying standard. So yeah, went solo from there, and probably about 27K mark, it was all headwind on the way back. So it's just an absolute brutal finish. Not the wind wasn't as bad as, say, Gold Coast that year. I'm sure a few of your listeners probably remember that, but it was just tough, just running solo, picking off a few guys, and just trying to chase that time, and crossed that line in 2:10:48 and got that qualifying standard. So, and I was pretty lucky really, because that was the last probably international marathon for that period. And if I had got my original plans of, well, not the original plans, but my modified plans of trying to get into London Marathon, well, that ended up being Cairns. So it's kind of very lucky and blessed in the end.
Wow, mate. And off you you were selected, you ran the qualifier, you earned your spot in another Olympic outing, and you get to Tokyo, obviously after the heat preparation camp in Cairns. And you ran an amazing race, controlled, through the field, 24th, took a lot of good names as you went. And what are your reflections, Lam, on your performance?
It's just crazy, those marathons in heat. I didn't get to do it this time because heat chambers and that were generally closed. So it was, I think, the VIS athletes, they were allowed to use heat chambers and whatever else. But if I was to go to a university, they were generally closed. So I didn't get the access to heat chambers this time. But yeah, you do all this heat training, say, up in Cairns and whatever else, and the conditions just weren't quite the same as Japan. So the humidity was a bit higher. The overall temperature was a little bit higher. And I tried most of the time when I was in Cairns, I was trying to do a few hard sessions right in the peak of the day. So when the sun was out, and it was quite tough, and you just try and learn what that heat's going to do. I think there was some sessions when my heart rate was at 188 for something that was generally my threshold standard. So something that I'd usually do comfortably in a standard threshold, it was probably at least 10 or so beats higher in the temperatures. So going into the race, I didn't have a clue what type of pace I could hold. We had a rough idea of the women the day before. I think I had kind of worked out off a couple of results that they were about 7 minutes off their personal bests. So had a little bit of an idea, and Collis kind of said that he'd researched the top 30 and he'd averaged it out to being about, they'd all been 7 minutes off their personal best. So we kind of got a little bit of a gauge of roughly what pace you should go out at. Yeah, I probably went out a little bit quicker than that average. I think we were kind of lucky that maybe didn't have the direct sunlight that the women had, but it was still bloody brutally hot. Yeah, you just don't know in those races the effects that the heat's going to have on you. So you go out a bit slower. We did this pre-cooling protocol where you jump in ice baths beforehand, which I've never done anything like that in my life. And then we did hyperhydration as well, which I've never tried that in a race before as well. So there's all these unknown factors that we'll try to use and whatever else, which definitely I feel that they all had positive effects on my result. But you're just in that race, throughout the whole race, you're just wondering, have I done the right thing? Have I gone out too hard? Have I gone out too easy? And you're just unsure of every little move that you do. Thankfully, I ran it fairly smart and kind of went a fair bit off feel and knew that I needed to be a bit more relaxed than I usually would in a marathon. So went well, and I think that my pacing strategy paid dividends when it came towards the finish, where I was picking off a lot of guys.
Any point did you know head count in front of you? Ellie Parshley mentioned that Lee Troop was for their race, the American fuel-in table station was giving some great patriotic feedback to the Aussies as well. Obviously, Lee would have been there for Jake Riley and Galen Rupp, etc., from the American team. But were you getting any on-course statistics about your placing as you were running through the field, Lam?
Yeah, it was really good to have Troopy there because he acted kind of like another coach to the Aussie team. So, yeah, I actually didn't know roughly. I didn't have a clue at my exact positioning throughout the whole race until I hit that 35K mark where Lee Troop was on the actual drink stations for USA, and he's yelled out, "You're 38th," and he told me to keep going, that top 30 was definitely achievable and whatever else. And yeah, I was kind of on that target that I was looking for before the race. I kind of set a minimum standard of top 30. I thought I should definitely be able to break into that if I ran it smart. If I have an absolute blinder, then I'd probably be maybe just in the top, just under the top 20 or something around that. Yeah, it's good getting that information off him at the 35K mark because I knew I was kind of on target for where I thought I'd be.
Yeah, and well, you've ended up between the 20s and the 30s there with 24th, which, you know, if the name's in front of you there, spectacular performance. Obviously, you know, your fellow Australian teammates there, Brett Robinson and Jack Reyna, their days didn't go to plan. So, yeah, you flew the flag home in the end there for the Aussie males.
Yeah, it's just being with the boys for that long and doing a few of their sessions and seeing the type of form that those guys were in and the circumstances that, like what happened to Jack and stuff. I feel for the boys. They deserve a lot better than what happened to them on the day. So hopefully they bounce back really strong and yeah, they run some fast times over the next few years.
Liam, your fueling strategy, what was that like? Had that deviated from, you mentioned hyperhydration was something that you added to this Tokyo Marathon, and the pre-cooling protocol with ice baths, etc. But did you change your fueling strategy, carbohydrate per grams per hour or anything leading into this?
I kind of did it as normal, try and take in maybe a little bit more than I usually would. But generally I get to a race and I try and take in as much as I can to the point where, yeah, if I'm developing a bit of a stitch, then I'll ease it off a bit. I think I kept the fueling strategy fairly similar. Just the hyperhydration beforehand was where I'd changed things lots up. And, yeah, for this race, I just felt that the cooling was probably the most important thing to do. So there was a couple of drink stations where they had bottles of cold water and then they had ice. So it was every time I ran past the drink station with a bottled water or ice, I was chucking it over the head, chucking ice in my hat, and just trying to keep as cool as I can. Chuck some ice in my hands and wherever else. So I think that was probably the thing that I was really making an effort to do on course. I think every single drink station I was searching for the water and that to chuck over the head to try and keep cool.
Yeah, gosh. Did you get a core body temperature check at the end?
Wouldn't have a clue, but there was points in that race where I had a really hot flush. I think it was, all right. Like the temperatures were quite hot. I managed it fairly well. I think, if you probably ran out a bit harder, you're probably going to pay for it towards the end, and you'd probably feel the temperatures a bit more. And
we certainly saw that with both male and female finishers, but seemingly more with the male field. Lots of attrition there. Moving ahead, there's obviously lots of championships to come between now and the next Olympic cycle, World Champs, Com Games. But what's next for you, apart from getting out of quarantine successfully? And avoiding some of the food traps that seem to be coming your way, Liam. I've particularly enjoyed your social media with, friends of yours sending up lollies and donuts and some funny videos of you sitting on a bike, a little bit stuffed full of pillows.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought I'd just have a bit of a joke. I'm a bit of a sweet tooth in that. So, I absolutely love those type of foods and that. But I probably love them a bit more when I'm doing exercise and that. You kind of crave it a bit more then. And, I haven't really craved that type of food the last few days. And we're a couple of the meals here in hotel quarantines probably been on par with maybe aeroplane food or maybe a little bit worse. So there's been a couple of meals that I've skipped, and thankfully some people have sent me through some meals as well. So that's helped me. But yeah, there's been a few meals that I've skipped here, and I probably haven't been eating as much as I usually would, say, if I was working, doing a full day work and going for a run. Yeah, I'd probably burn a lot of calories then, but the body's kind of realised that I kind of limited to this room, so I'm not doing much exercise on that. Yeah, I haven't really craved or appreciated food as much as I usually would.
Gosh.
But going back to your question with plans, I've kind of been trying to do some thinking about how I'm going to try and qualify for Commonwealth Games and World Championships next year. I think it's roughly about a three week period apart, those events, the marathon, and I was kind of thinking that I could possibly do that. And I've done 2 marathons before within the space of a month, and I thought that I'd probably have to prove myself and my ability to try and back up. And I was kind of looking at doing Sydney Marathon into Melbourne Marathon this year, but I don't think any of those events are going ahead. And going off all reports, it sounds like international travel is kind of getting a bit stricter. So I don't know if I'll be able to get overseas to do a marathon and whether it'll be feasible for me. I think you're probably looking at an overlay of maybe 16 to 20 grand that I'll probably have to fork out of my savings. So I don't have a clue what I'll do for this qualification period. I think ideally I'd love to do if I was to do overlay 16 grand and then the race got cancelled or something like that. If it didn't go to plans, then it's 16 grand into hotel quarantine, into 2 weeks off work. And it'll be this another month without, say, an income or whatever. I don't know what I'll do about that, and I'm kind of leaning towards maybe a local marathon to try and qualify in, but Sydney and Melbourne don't look like they'll go ahead.
Yeah, and obviously you missed out on the Gold Coast Marathon half, which you were up to do July this year, 2021, which was a build-up race for Tokyo. And many people, Liam, realise that you work full-time as an electrician alongside being an Olympic Australian representative, which is outstanding. And you've shared that back on your prior feature performer episode that you would typically run at the end of a day after a long day on the tools. So you are a hard-working, resilient athlete, Liam, and I know we all wish you the success for navigating this next journey with hopefully another Australian representation somewhere ahead.
Cheers, Brad. Thank you very much.
Now, next across the line for the Australian men was repeat guest of the show, Australian national record holder for the half marathon, Brett Robinson. Now, Brett's day did not go as planned. Brett crossed the line in 2:24.04, and as you'll hear, Brett was hit with intense abdominal region cramping that forced him to slow to a trot by his standards. Here is my conversation with Brett reflecting on his Tokyo 2020 Olympic Marathon. Brett Robinson, welcome back to the Physical Performance Show.
Thanks for having me back. It's a big fan of the show, so it's good to be back on again.
It's been quite a while, and you're sitting there at the moment in quarantine at the Stamford Plaza in Brisbane. So you're in the lap of luxury, but you can't go outside.
Yeah, I know. I got a nice view of the pool downstairs, but it's just teasing me at the moment. So it's a nice day outside as well, but I can't make the most of it.
Gosh, well, you're almost halfway there at the time of this recording.
Yeah, getting close. So it's gone pretty quick as well, so not too bad.
And you've taken to Zwift with some cycling to pass the time?
Yeah, just want to keep active. Nothing too hard, but just rolling the legs over, which is cool. So I get really into it because it's just different to running, so it's kind of fun to do.
Are you doing races or purely just doing your own rides on some of the routes in there? Which is your favourite land, Zwift?
I'm still pretty new to it. So I just rode around New York yesterday, I think in that map series. And then today I was in London. So it's funny. It's like some of the marathon courses that I've run on as well. So I recognise it, which is cool. But I've just been riding around. I probably will do a bit of a race soon and see how good I can go. But I'm not very good on the bike either.
Oh, mate, well, we know what you're like on your legs. Australian half marathon sub 1 hour record holder, former 10,000 metre Australian champion as well. Brett, this is the Tokyo Marathon recap special episode, and your day was a tough one by the looks. We all know what you're capable of, and clearly it just didn't go to plan.
Yeah, it was a pretty disappointing day, and yeah, I know what I'm capable of, and it's very hard to take when you're going into a race like very confident and like things have been going well. Like, yeah, I have this problem with my abdominal area that I thought I was on top of. I'd made changes because it's happened to me in the past, and I thought I was prepared for it, and then it happened again. So it's like a bit of a shock at the time. But yeah, like I'm trying to take some positivities about that. I was actually very fit, and I had how well I prepared, and I was ready for the heat. I was sticking to a game plan, and then but it doesn't matter when you end up not finishing how you want.
I mean, your preparation involved time in Cairns, so you were heat acclimated. It was a strategic move from yourself and your team, Collis Birmingham as your coach, Nick Badeau, to have you up there. So, as you say, you were fit, you were ready, but you just thought you were on top of this abdominal pain, but it wasn't the case. It came on, I believe, around 28 Ks. Is that right?
Yeah.
Or somewhere around
there?
Yeah,
about there. But yeah, that was the thing. And I'd been training in a heat chamber in Melbourne as well. So like I'd done a lot. Like running when I got to Sapporo, like it was hot there, but I felt like it wasn't affecting me that much. Like going off my heart rate, it wasn't much different to how it'd be just on an easy run at home. So I felt like I was ready for that, and I was pretty confident if I stuck to my plan that I would have a good result.
And Brett, this has happened in a few other major marathons. London, I believe, New York, you had a pacing issue where you went out pretty hard and didn't have this abdominal pain come on, but. Your next steps from what you've mentioned are trying to get to the bottom of it and string together the marathon that we know you're capable of.
Yeah, exactly. It's happened now in 3 marathons and a couple other half marathons. Yeah, it's just like I know I've got a good race there, and indicates in training I do as well. So there's a few things we might try to change in training a little bit to see, even if we're not getting to the bottom of it, if I can train the area better to be able to take the load. If it's a muscle problem that gets tired or something like that, maybe I can train the area better so that it's coming on later, if anything. But but then I'm working with you, obviously, to try to find the right people to speak to and how to investigate it. But yeah, I'm still looking for answers, but hopefully we can get them. Yeah,
they'll be out there. I mean, up to that point where it kicked in Tokyo, we're all aware of the hot, arduous conditions, but what pace were you sort of sitting on up to that point? And then what did this abdominal cramping result in pace-wise after that? Yeah, so my plan was to pretty much try to run 16-minute 5Ks just the whole way. And I thought that probably gets you around a 2:14. I knew if I was to run that, like it'd be a pretty good race. But actually, to be honest, the front guys ran a bit quicker than I thought they did as well. So they handled the heat pretty well. Yeah, so that's I was probably running about 3:10s, and then once it kicked in, like a few 3:20s, and then just gradually got slower and slower. And my last 5K was like 4:10s, 4:15. So it's moving pretty slow at the end. I think you both lose it a little bit. Like you obviously physically had lost it, but also mentally, especially those last 5K when you're kind of pushing, but you can't beat people and they're kind of coming past you. You fight a little bit, but then the pain kicks in. So it's just like, I definitely like lost it a little bit there, which is like disappointing, but yeah, there was nothing I could do on the day. And we're not talking about a minor cramp. This was fairly debilitating. Like out of 10, the pain that you're experiencing in the abdominal region was a what, Brett? Oh, yeah, pretty high, 9. I reckon, when I'm like, if I just keep trying to push, it kind of, it's like really sharp. And then if I kind of ease back a little bit or ease down a little bit, but then, so I'm like, all right, let's try to push again. And it's like straight away back to like 9 out of 10. So it's just like, might be able to ease it to a 7 out of 10, but it just means I have to run so slow. And I think most distance runners will have experienced a debilitating cramp at some point. Fortunately, they're fairly phasic. They come on and then they let go and, off you go. But for you, that comes on and stays there until you stop. the
Yeah,
exertion.
exactly. And like that's what I'm like even thinking. I'm like, should I just stop and walk for like 30 seconds and see what happens? But it's just, I don't know. I think it'll just come straight back as well. But and when you get it at like 28 or so K, you've got a good 45 or so minutes of pushing through this. So it's not very fun.
What's the emotion like now? I mean, the irony, you have a bad day out by your own expectations and standards, that is, and things clearly didn't go well for you with your body. Is it made worse by the fact that you then have to sit in a room for 2 weeks and just think about it and sort of feel like you've got your hands tied behind your back, or is it quite nice just to block out some of the distractions and have some time to reflect?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both, and I'll probably go through feeling like both through the 2 weeks. It's probably good that it's a forced rest, because I'd say if I was just straight back home, I'd be like, I want to get straight back into training for the next thing. But now I'm like, I have to actually take it easy for a little bit. Yeah, and now it also gives me the time to work on these little things that I need to. I'm very limited in the room, but and also speak to people that I need to and work out what is the action plan from this.
You had mentioned in the build-up, Brett, that you'd change your fuel-in strategy with the hope that it may have been a fuel-in related issue. And I think at one point you mentioned to me that you were dropping right back on your carbohydrate ingestion. Are you happy to share around that?
Yeah. So in previous marathons, I had gone a pretty high carbohydrate intake, probably around 80, 90 grams an hour. And then I was having these stitches. So, I did a gut assessment test, and they said that I just wasn't processing that amount of carbs. So it'd be better for me to drop it. So I looked at more of about a 40 grams an hour for about the first hour to maybe 70 minutes. And then after that, go to just mouth rinse. So I actually don't really take much on in that second bit. So they were thinking that that would be enough to keep me going, but reduce the risk of upsetting my stomach. But obviously that didn't work, and it didn't make a difference, to be honest. But I don't know. So it's just that was the disappointing things, because I really thought actually we have a really good plan here with the fueling, and then it just it was the same.
And that wasn't just stab in the dark stuff. That was done through science and with university academics, etc.
I did like a proper test at Monash. I was on the treadmill for 2 hours, just testing how my body used it and testing for any intolerances and stuff like that. But and they didn't really find much, apart from that it wasn't really getting processed as quick as I would like. It was kind of sitting in my stomach a little bit. But that's why we just kind of drop down the amount so it wouldn't be much as a problem. But I don't really think it's to do with my gut, because I don't get it in training. I can have high amounts in training and it doesn't really do it. So I don't think it's my actual stomach. I think it's more a muscular thing or something else.
Well, mate, thanks for openly sharing, and we all realise that it wasn't the day you wanted, but we also all know what you're capable of and know that your day will come. So all the best for the next X amount of days in quarantine there. And what would be next for Brett Robinson? I believe you might be looking at some upcoming events, calendar pending.
Yeah. I would like to, obviously need to try to work out this problem, but if things are going well, I would look at doing Melbourne Marathon. It's my local marathon, and it's a quick turnaround, so I have to see how my body heals. My body feels pretty good, to be honest. When you have to take it a bit easy, the last bit you get a good warm down. So so Melbourne Marathon, or maybe I'll just get some other fun runs around. But sorry, it's not the most positive podcast we've done, but it'll be. It's all part of the story.
Brett, it's we themed the show the highs, lows, and learnings, and clearly, there's some lows and learnings from this. But we wish you all the best, Brett, and we'll speak soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
And then, as per Brett Robinson's marathon not going to plan, neither did his Melbourne Track Club teammates' Olympic outing, Jack Reyna, with his marathon debut. Jack was beset with a bone stress injury leading into the Tokyo 2021 marathon, which you'll hear him share about, and then on the day he succumbed to extreme cramping in both of his quads at around the 8 to 10 kilometre mark. forcing Jack to withdraw. Here's Jack on the lows and the learn-ins, and by his own acknowledgement, the lack of highs from his Olympic debut. Jack Reyna, welcome back to Australia after the Tokyo Olympic Games marathon, and we theme this show the highs, lows and learn-ins. Unfortunately, on your end, it was not your greatest Olympic debut.
No, not at all. Definitely on the low end side of things, but yeah, all part of the experience at the end of the day.
Jack, can you talk us through how it played out on the day? Most people, I suspect, were aware that, or may not be aware, that you were carrying an injury into Tokyo, the marathon.
Yeah, I didn't really try and hide it too much. I just put my Strava on private, which was a bit of a dead giveaway that something wasn't quite right. But yeah, that month, probably the hardest part about it was the month like leading up to the Olympics, knowing that I had a stress reaction and it was going to be pretty much, well, not impossible, but it was going to be a huge ask just to even get to the start line. So yeah, the hardest part was literally straight after finding out I was injured. So I was only able to run once every sort of 3 days once I found out I had the injury. And it was like really short amounts, like between 7 to 9 Ks. And like every time it was just a session. So I knew getting to the start line, it was going to be a bit of an ask to go 42K in one go with pretty much no training. But during the race, yeah, it felt good at the start, but then at about, or even before 5K, my legs, just because I hadn't ran for the whole month leading up to it pretty much, has just started cramping like never ever experienced it in training or anything before, but just both quads at the same time. Gradually got worse, and then to the point, went through the second drink station, and then within about 500 meters after that, like I physically couldn't lift my legs. Like they were just rocks, like just cramping up like rocks. And then, yeah, I had to pull the pin.
So that was around about the 8 or 9 Ks.
Yeah. So the second drink station, there was all weird points where the drink stations were, so they weren't even numbers, but it was like 8 point something Ks the drink station was, and I pulled out just before 10K. So yeah, made it another K after that.
And was it a tough decision, or it was like it's physically impossible, nothing to be gained by walking 32 Ks?
Yeah, I couldn't lift my legs, and I stopped, and then if I was to bend my heel to touch my bum, couldn't do it more than 10 centimeters. Like they were just so cramped up. It was like I've never experienced it before. It was pretty, yeah, obviously quite disappointing. I thought I would be able to run a lot further. Like I was hoping to finish the race, obviously, but yeah, it just got to the point where I physically couldn't go any longer.
Gosh, and debriefing with your medical team and dietitian there at the games, Jess Rothwell, any insights into what might have happened?
No, I think I'm just putting it back down to like not running for pretty much the month before. Like all the runs I was doing was, no more than 9K, and it was quite a bit of a coincidence that it got just past that point and then things started to go wrong.
Yeah, I was surprised when it was a cramping that took you out of the race. I suspected it might have been pain with the injury, which was a femoral bone stress injury, yeah?
Yeah, femoral, stress reaction. So it was, when I was doing the runs, it wasn't hurting when I was running, but it was just like more so once I'd stop like that, the rest of that day, it was like a bit of an awareness that it was there. When I was running in the actual race, I couldn't even feel it, which was good.
And you mentioned, Jack, you got the diagnosis of that femoral stress reaction about a month out from the games. When it came on, was in the quad. I've had 4 of these, unfortunately, myself since 2015, and I can now pick them pretty well. Definitely myself. Hopefully I don't have to pick them ever again. But my first thought was always, it just feels like a bit of a strain in the quad. How did yours come on?
It was more like higher up in my hip. I just thought it was like not obvious. I didn't think it was bone related at the start. I was just thinking it was like I had issues in like hip flexor. There's so many things going on in that area. It's hard to pinpoint something. But yeah, it was just gradually getting sore for like a week. It wasn't stopping me. I was still able to do full training and everything. But yeah. And then Collis was just saying to play it safe, go get a scan, see exactly what's wrong. And then, that showed up. Because, the physios were treating it like it was muscle at the start. But yeah, obviously MRI shows things that you can't really see on the surface.
This was before, you picked that up before the goal, after you were meant to run the Gold Coast 2021 half marathon.
Yeah, straight after it, pretty much, like a week later.
Yeah. In Cairns, where you were doing your staging camp.
Yeah.
And that resulted in you cross-training using an Alter G, I believe, as well.
There was an Alter G in Cairns that didn't really work, so wasn't able to use Alter G, which, I think it went up to 5-minute Ks or something was its max speed. So 12K an hour, I think that is. So that didn't work properly. But I was, had Tim O'Shaughnessy there with helping with the cross-training, which was good. But I was just doing a heap of cross-training actually on the bike for 90 minutes a day, and then pool running for 40 minutes, and then doing a double every single day pretty much. So I was fit, but just wasn't conditioned for running.
Yeah, different sort of conditioning, isn't it? And with those 7 to 9K runs you were getting in every 3 days, were you still feeling a bit of strain, a bit of soreness up in that proximal femur?
No, when I was running, it was feeling pretty good. Like the first few runs just felt a bit unnatural because I'd taken a week and a half off before I started running. But when I was running, I was feeling great. And it was the sessions were small enough that you were feeling good, and it was every third day. So it was you're always going to be feeling pretty fresh. But it's just had it against me in the end.
Yeah. And were you doing any additional things to try and enhance bone healing, Jack?
I had Forteo, the bone injections. It will obviously need a little bit more time for it to work properly, I think.
Yeah, gosh. So looking back, what are your learnings you've taken away from preparing for your next major?
I don't know if it'll be a major, my next one. I'm still working out what I want to do. Obviously still want to do marathons, but I think just changing a few things in my prep. I actually listened to your physical performance show with Stuart Warden. So a few things from that I can probably put to good use for my next one. Just being a little bit more careful with everything and deloading maybe every couple of months, because I have ran into a few issues now, which hasn't been great. So mainly just the start line fit and not absolutely smashing yourself in the prep would be the best thing for me.
Yeah, and I mean, every athlete's different, but there's certainly been a lot of feedback, Jack, from Stuart Warden's expert edition around what you just touched on, that concept of a deload week every 3 months, or maybe sooner for runners with a history.
Yeah, a lot of elite athletes would shy away from it, but if it's going to, for 1 week without running or deloading is going to keep you running the whole year rather than having 3 months off, I think it's a pretty good trade-off.
Yeah, exactly. But the concept is tough to digest, isn't it? A whole week of deloading, or I know it is. When you're fit, when you're feeling fit,
If you say to someone you can have a week off or you can have 10 weeks off, what are you going to pick?
That's the contrast, isn't it? You're almost out of hotel quarantine there in Brisbane, but you've been overlooking the beautiful Brisbane River with these glorious winter days. It's been quite the challenge, I believe, going to the room for not leaving the room, even getting dinner, you're required to wear a mask. And there's quarantine there. There's cameras on you for that even.
Yeah, I opened the door without a mask or warning my first day. So, it's I'm looking forward to getting out, that's for sure.
Yeah, and home for you looks like Melbourne, Australia, which when you get home will still be in lockdown. At least you're able to get outside.
Yeah, exactly. Just looking forward to going outside.
Jack, and event-wise, I mean, the calendar's very upside down and turbulent, but what's Jack Reyna looking at next?
Well, who knows? Would like to race back at home in Melbourne, Melbourne half marathon or something, but it'll be touch and go whether that goes ahead, and it will be quite soon, actually. So I think I just need to get fit again slowly, be a bit more smarter about a few things, and gear up for a marathon in early next year, February or March or something. Who knows which one it will be, but
there's a bit coming up, obviously 2022 Com Games, World Champs. It's quite a big year.
Yeah, it's a stacked year next year, that's for sure. I'm not sure. I haven't really thought about it too much just yet.
Yeah, got time. Got another day and a half in quarantine, so there's plenty of time.
Yeah,
Jack, just for a moment, looping back to Stuart Warden there, was there anything else that did jump out from that expert edition? You mentioned the deload week. Anything else that you took from it? Just
about taking your easy days a lot easier than for when you're fit, you can just keep running pretty hard and not realizing how hard you're going sometimes. Looking back on my training, some of my easy days really should have been a lot easier. But when you're just feeling good, it's just easy to get carried away and just keep training at a high level without actually taking it easy. So, yeah, that's something I'll definitely take on board a little bit more.
And I think it's refreshing, Jack, for athletes of all levels to hear, someone like yourself, Olympian, still learning. It's a constant process.
Always learning, yeah.
Yeah, and yourself and Brett Robinson and your team are behind Pulse Run Coaching now, which I know several runners who are benefiting running PBs and enjoying the coaching. So that's been something through this pandemic that's obviously been good to get off the ground.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's great. Like coaching some new guys that are new to the sport, people that have been around for ages. But yeah, just watching them improve each week, each month. It's pretty rewarding when you see someone go well. You see someone run a PB and you know you're part of that. So it's pretty great. And you get to work when you're away like this, which is also a bonus.
Anywhere in the world, the coaching. And to find Pulse Run Coaching on Instagram, what's the handle there, Jack?
Just at Pulse Running.
Yep, at Pulse Running. Easy. Jack, obviously you've touched on a few of the learnings and, the fact that this was not how you wanted your Olympic debut to go, so the lows, if you like. But was there a bit of a high moment from your Olympic experience, something that jumped out that was juxtaposed against the toughness?
Honestly, not really.
Oh, mate.
When we were away in Sapporo, it was like, didn't even feel like we were at the Olympics at all. There's just pretty much almost like a hotel quarantine there as well. It's just could only leave to go to the track, which was just a 900-meter concrete oval, and then you could go get your food at the hall across the road, and that was it. Going to the village was cool. We got to spend a night there, so that was probably the best part about it.
After the marathon, you went back there for a night before you flew out.
That was probably the best part about it.
Yeah, I know Zane Robertson, former guest of the show, Kiwi marathoner, he expressed some disappointment that it was Sapporo 2021 and not Tokyo 2020. That incidentally, on the day, the conditions were probably hotter than it would have been in Tokyo.
Yeah. I didn't get far enough into the race to really experience the heat, but yeah, from what people were saying, it was pretty fucking hard.
Jack. Well, mate, it's been a tough patch for you, but we all know what you're capable of, and we certainly are looking forward to seeing you back to your best and out there and running events and on that trajectory that we all know you're on.
Yeah, looking forward to getting back. Just got to be patient this time around. Change a few things up.
Be patient.
Love to get something good on the board soon.
Yeah, be patient. Kind of sums up, unfortunately, our approach, all of us, to the pandemic.
Yeah. It's testing a few people's patience, but yeah, I'm sure things will get better soon.
Well, Jack, thanks for popping by the Physical Performance Show on this Tokyo Marathon recap.
No worries. Thanks for having me on.
Now, be sure to connect with Jack and Brett for run coaching services over at Pulse Running on Instagram. So there you have it, another episode of the Physical Performance Show by way of a bonus episode with the Tokyo 2020/21 Australian Marathon team, reflecting on their highs, lows and learnings. Now, I suspect you enjoyed today's show, took something from it, and if you did, then please reach out to the athletes, let them know what it was that you took from their share-ins. We certainly wish them all the very best on leaving hotel quarantine. And as we all know, here in Australia, heading into ongoing tough times, especially with disruption to the racing calendar, making racing plans so difficult to cement. If you've been enjoying the show, keep the podsies coming. That's a screenshot of the episode that you've been enjoying and tag it in the show at Physical Performance Show. A massive thanks to today's show's sponsor. We say podcasts are free to download, however, they are not free to produce. Precision Hydration, your support goes a long way. And do check out the brand new Precision Fuel range and take the online Quick Carb Calculator to calculate your required carbohydrate intake for your next upcoming race and for your key hard and long training sessions. Jump over to precisionhydration.com. A massive thanks to the show's patrons. Your support makes the show possible as well. You can find the Physical Performance Show over at Patreon. And from just $5 per month, support the show's production. In return, we'll grant you access to all of our back catalogued live stream events, including Dr. Stephen Seiler on all things polarized training and Dr. Shona Hellson on all things optimizing recovery. And of course, our upcoming live stream, Fueling the Endurance Athlete, featuring Rinny McGregor, to be held in September 2021. Lastly, if you are an endurance athlete struggling with your own bone stress injury, tendon-related concern, or joint-related concern, then do reach out for help. You can find me readily at Brad_beer on Instagram or Twitter, or shoot me an email, b.beer@pogophysio.com.au, or simply jump over to Pogo Physio's online telehealth consultation, book-in services, pogophysio.com.au/telehealth. Massive thanks to the great folk who make this show possible each and every week. Daryl Misson, our audio engineer, Susan Wilkin on all things show administration, and Matthew Alding on all things show graphic design. Now, coming up later this week for our usual episode release on Thursday evening, we keep the Tokyo 2021 content coming your way, and we share with you a collective episode with conversations I had from men's triathlon podium place getter Hayden Wild, who crossed the line to take a bronze for New Zealand, and I caught up with Christian Blumenfeld, newly crowned Olympic triathlon champion, and as of just several days ago, also 2021 World Triathlon Series champion. He's the Norwegian powerhouse, the new face of men's triathlon, and I know you'll enjoy hearing from both Hayden and Christian on episode 286. Until then, keep pursuing your physical best performance. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.